Hi friends, I'm so excited to see you again. Alright, so this is another heat transfer vinyl tassel video, but the difference now is that back when I came up with applying heat transfer vinyl to the back of sewing vinyl and cork, it was one of my very first YouTube tutorials, and I was more focused on trying to see if I could get it to fail so that you didn't waste your time and your product versus showing you the right way to apply it and explaining more about what heat transfer vinyl is. And so I'm rectifying that today. Today we're going to talk about how to apply this product here to the back of this, which is marine vinyl. The reason why is because I have just had the privilege of sewing up the Stephie Shoulder Bag from Linds Handmade Design, and it features this amazing tassel. Links to the pattern and all of the materials that I'm using are in the description box. Hit show more underneath the title of this video, and then you will see timestamps and you will see links and all of the goodness that you need to know. You do not have to apply heat transfer vinyl to the back in order to make this tassel. It looks fine without it, but I wanted to add a little bit of bling, and I also added it to the back of my shoulder strap as well. This is backstitch fabric, and this is this is no longer available in retail, but this is called Wizard of Hobbs. And so I wanted to play on the Dorothy concept with this red glitter for her shoes. And so it's just a little bit of fun. Now, I am going to use the Cricut machine to cut out my tassel, and I'll be showing you how to use the SVG files to do that. But again, you don't need a Cricut to make this amazing bag or to make this tassel. Be sure to watch Lindsay's tutorial if you want to know how to do it with a ruler and a blade. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about what's heat transfer vinyl. What does it cost, and where do you buy it? Okay, the first thing we need to talk about is what in the world is HTV? HTV is simply an acronym. We have so many of them in the sewing and crafting world. HTV is just an acronym for heat transfer vinyl. The only brand that I'm aware of that refers to it as HTV is the Sizer brand. This is from Michaels, and I believe you can also get it online. The other brands like Cricut and Paper Studio refer to it as iron-on. You do need to be careful because this product looks very similar, but it is not iron-on. This is an adhesive vinyl. It's sticky on the back and it doesn't need any heat in order to adhere to your surface, but it will peel away over time from things like garments and the tassels that we're going to be using today. So this is not appropriate to use for textile type crafts. Okay, so we're not going to use this one. The second thing I want to talk about is the price and the size variance of these different products. So these are all HTV. This one is 12 by 19, this one is 12 by 24, and this one is 11.8 by 36 inches. While this one is certainly longer, it's also much more expensive at $22.99. This one, regularly priced, is $16.99, and this one, regularly priced, is $11.99. Now we know where to get it, what it is, and what to look for. Now, how do we put it on our materials? Okay, so we have our winner. This is the one that I'm using for my product here, my project I should say, and it used to be that there were instructions on these sheets, and there aren't anymore. If you happen to separate this away from your actual vinyl, that's okay. You can tell that this is not the adhesive kind because of the backing. It looks completely different than the regular vinyl that is self-adhesive. Okay, it tells you on this piece of paper here that you're to go to the Cricut website, so it's help.cricut.com, and then it wants you to search, and then search glitter iron-on, because there are different care instructions for the different types of HTV vinyl that we discussed earlier. I went ahead and printed this out, and this tells you everything that you need to know, and then it also, most importantly, talks about how long you need to iron it, what the setting of your iron is to be, and then what peel method to use. There's warm peel and cool peel. Warm peel means that the product is still warm to the touch after you've ironed it on, but it hasn't cooled completely, and that's the proper time to cool it. This one is cool peel, which means that it wants to be completely cool to the touch before you remove this protective plastic backing away from it to expose the HTV product. Now on today's project that we're doing, we don't need to worry about layering. We don't need to really worry about cutting this out or this carrier sheet or any of these, because we're going to go a little bit rogue and we are going to apply the heat transfer vinyl to the back of our tassel material, replacing the wrong side of the fabric with this beautiful glitter, and then proceeding to cut. And so we're going to be doing a little bit differently. You really just need to worry here about what your iron settings are and then how long to press. Okay, so typically when we would be doing a project like this, we would simply take our HTV and we would adhere it to our mat here, and then we would cut it out. Now, we're doing this project even if we didn't have a Cricut cutting machine. You can use this heat transfer vinyl just with a ruler and an X-Acto knife or what have you to cut it out. You do not need a Cricut or a die cutting machine to use this product. So instead of applying this to the mat, we're going to just do a rough cut, and we're going to make it the size of our material here. Now I've already cut this a little bit larger than our finished tassel is going to be, and I want to use this as a guide for the size to cut my HTV. Now my project is going to be cut somewhere in the center of here, so I don't really need to worry about lining up these edges exactly. But I don't want to waste this material because I've just told you how expensive it is. So I'm going to look and I'm going to see that I need to cut it along this line here. Okay, so this is just a little Dollar Tree X-Acto knife. It does curl up, so it can be a kind of a pain in the neck. Square this up a little bit better. Okay. And then we're just going to go ahead and continue and cut it until it's the same size as our material here. Okay, so we've gone ahead and now we've cut our HTV and our other tassel material. This happens to be like a marine type vinyl, a starchy vinyl, to size, and we are ready to adhere this. This is larger than our finished project, although I'm going to be using the Cricut to cut it out. I would recommend that you cut this and make this larger than the final project as well, even if you're cutting by hand using an X-Acto knife and a ruler, just to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. Okay, so here we are at the ironing board. And I would recommend, although you don't have to do this, I would recommend that you protect both your ironing board surface and your iron itself. Sorry, if you see green little hairs everywhere, that's because I just made a pom-pom with Grinch fabric and it is everywhere. So you just want to protect your ironing board, and you certainly need to protect your vinyl from heat. So I'm just using a piece of copy paper, and I'm centering this here, put this here. My iron has heated. I have the steam turned off. I'm referring to these instructions from Cricut to make sure that I'm doing it properly. I have my iron set to the highest setting. It wants me to use medium pressure, so I don't have to like really ream on this. I'm going to let my iron sit for about 25 seconds per spot. If you're doing cotton or some other kind of fabric, it does want you to heat the fabric first, and you certainly could have done that with the vinyl. I just out of caution am trying not to heat it overly much. I haven't found that it's been necessary to preheat it. You do want to use a surface that's firm. And the instructions also go over that. So I'm pressing down lightly. I'm not killing myself over it. And you can also use a heat press with this, but you don't have to. I'm using an iron rather than my heat press so that you know that you don't need to have another piece of expensive equipment. So I stumbled upon this idea back in March or April, I can't remember which, and it was one of the first videos that I shared with you all. And I have been so excited to see how many of you, whether you came to this idea from me the first time or through other content creators who picked it up and ran with it, like Jessa Okla Roots, just how much, oh, it's been so exciting to see all these projects that have been made with it. It just tickles me to no end. Okay, so some of you may be worried that perhaps this vinyl was damaged. It was not. It's perfectly fine. I'm going to now iron it from the reverse side, which is what the instructions tell us to do. Now, I already know that this adhered really well, so I'm not going to do the full 25 to 30 seconds. I could tell just by lifting it up. I am just going to go over it briefly. What you don't want to do is use an ironing motion because that will shift the materials around and the adhesive around when you do that. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look. That paper works really well as a protecting barrier. This is still very hot. And so even if this was the warm peel method, we would not want to peel it yet because it would remove the adhesive and it would remove the glitter from our project. If you happen to notice some areas that did not stick, usually it's on the corners, then you just simply put your protecting sheet back over it and then hit that area and you'll be good to go. So this has started to cool, and what I'm noticing here is areas that look like they did not adhere properly. And on the back of the fabric, or actually on the right side of the tassel material, you can kind of see this bubbling here. I'm going to try to hit that again just to make sure we have a good adhesion, because as the machine cuts through here, what I don't want to have happen is that the glitter be lifted from the back of these sections of the tassel. So we're just going to hit it again. Okay, my vinyl is now cool to the touch. It's not at all warm. I still have this little dimpling here, which has me somewhat concerned, but what I want to do is go ahead and move forward with the project without editing this out and without starting over, so that if there's a mistake to be made here or something that didn't work right, we learn together. And I'm not pretending that there aren't any issues with this, because it's important that I not waste your time and materials as well. Okay, so now that it's cool, let's go ahead and peel it. What I'm doing is I'm separating this plastic stiff, and this is called a carrier sheet or carrier material actually, and I'm just separating it from the glitter, HTV. Okay. It's sticky on its own, but it is going to peel off of here nicely. Okay, so here is our finished project. I don't see any of that dimpling that I was concerned about before, and so I wonder if maybe that wasn't the carrier sheet that was dimpled rather than the glitter. And I'm looking through the screen on my camera to see if that picks it up better than my naked eye. I'm not really seeing it. See a tiny bit here. Okay, so let's continue on and see what we've got. Obviously, we're finished with the tassel. This is after I filmed, and so I can tell you that the concerns that I had about the dimpling or the vinyl not adhering, it really was that clear transfer layer rather than the HTV or the vinyl, because it is very nicely adhered. I had no worries. I had to, kind of manhandle this a little bit to get it apart, and it worked just fine. So if I were not using the Cricut, I would then continue through the pattern instructions. So we've put it on our material. From here on out, it's really just following the pattern that Lindsay has written. So I encourage you to go and watch her video for a couple of reasons. One, she's the designer and she knows how to do it right. Number two, you will see that I really messed this up. So you've gone ahead and you've purchased the Stephie Shoulder Bag pattern from lindshandmade.com, and you'll have noticed that it comes with free cut files that you're able to use with a die cutting machine. This is not a pattern piece that you would cut out using scissors or a rotary blade. This is specific pattern pieces for a die cutting machine. When you download them, they're in a zip folder. I'm using a PC. My understanding on a Mac is that the symbol looks similar, if not the same, and to extract on a Mac, you simply double click. But on a PC, we have to take an additional step. So we need to right click and we need to choose Extract All. This box comes up and I want it to show me the extracted files when complete, and it's going to go ahead and save it here for me. So I'm going to choose Extract, and now our system files will be complete. I want to point out, because I know a lot of you think that this step isn't necessary, because when you double click on this and you go to Cricut Cut Files, you may be able to see the files. Give me just a second, it's pulling up on my other monitor here. So the files look perfect. You would even be able to upload these to Cricut Design Space and it would look just fine on your screen. It's only when you go to cut the project out that you realize that some of the data is missing from this and it doesn't work. So please take the time to go ahead and extract those files. You might even want to change the name of this to Extract Before Using. Something to try at home, and then only use this one for your source materials. So let's go ahead and fire up Cricut. I've got it running over here. And I'm going to start a new project. I need to go to Upload and then upload an image. I'm going to choose Browse. And for some reason on this monitor, it always comes up humongous. So I'm going to go to my downloads. I've saved it here, and then I know that it's this folder that I want to use, not this one. So I'm coming here, and I don't use a brother or a silhouette, so I'm just ignoring these files. I'm going to go ahead to go to the Cricut folder and then double click here to bring these in. Now this is an SVG, so we don't need to worry about anything else other than maybe renaming it if we want to, and then adding tags if we wanted to do that. So maybe we want to add tassel, zipper facing, and the ring tabs, just to help us find it if, in case another project comes along, we want to use this and we don't remember what the name of the bag pattern was. So now we're going to choose Upload. I'm going to select it by clicking on it with my left mouse key, and then I'm going to say Add to Canvas. Okay, and it's already populated in here. They're all joined together now. There is one object, and so we need to ungroup them. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Ungroup. And because I'm only demonstrating for you today the Tassel project, I'm going to go ahead and just delete these other ones. And I'm clicking on them to select with my left mouse key and then using my delete key. I'm going to come up here and I'm referring to my pattern instructions, and those tell me that this is the proper size for here. So I don't need to worry about this test square, although I do know that it came in at 1 by 1, and so I know it's perfect too. Special thanks to Ashley Stovall, who creates all of these SVG files for Linds Handmade. And now it's ready to go ahead and cut out. So let's go ahead and choose Make It. I broke my rule. I'm going to go back a second and I'm going to choose Save. I'm going to call this Stephie Shoulder Bag Tassel and LHD, so that I know that it came from Linds Handmade Designs. All right, so now we have it saved, because something can go wonky sometimes when we go to make this. Okay, so my Maker is turned on, and you can do this with an Explorer Air as well. It doesn't need to be the Maker. You can also do it with the Maker 3. So we're going to go ahead and choose, and I have Maker selected here. I'm going to choose Make It. And I want to continue. I do want to make sure that I'm comparing my mat that I have in real life with the mat that's on the screen. And so my mat in real life fits on here just fine. So I'm going to choose continue. And now I need to tell it what kind of material I'm using. It's going to connect via Bluetooth, so it's going to take just a second. And if you haven't watched one of my previous videos, my favorite setting for marine vinyl, cork, and those kinds of things is non-adhesive vinyl 20 gauge. I have this saved as a favorite, but let's go ahead and show you how to select that in case you didn't have it as a favorite. I'm going to come up here to browse all materials, and then I'm going to say non-adhesive and see if it finds it. It didn't. It needs to have the hyphen. Okay, so then I'm going to use 20 gauge rather than 16 gauge and select it and say done. It automatically tells me what kind of a tool I need. It tells me that I need the fine point blade and clamp B. And so let's go ahead. I'm going to now meet you over at the machine itself and go from there. Okay, I want to make sure that I have enough space behind my machine here that the mat isn't going to go through and then hit that back wall. So I'm going to scoot this forward a little bit. I'm going to load my mat. Okay, and I don't have a tool in here. I need to put it in, and our machine told us that it was the fine point blade. So I'm going to grab that from my tool holder. I'm going to check and remove any kind of debris that's in there. Okay, so I'm going to open the clamp holder. This is the B clamp. Close the left side, snap the right side into place. The A side is where we put pens and things. Okay, it's ready to go because the mat is flashing, or the machine is flashing cut. So I'm going to go ahead and hit cut. Okay, so we had a little snafu with filming, and so we missed the part where this was in here. It was completely done cutting, and I went ahead and hit the unload button and have removed it. Now, I probably would have preferred to have it run a second time, but my Bluetooth got disconnected because of my error, not because of the machine. And so now I'm going to have to separate these pieces kind of by tearing them a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll meet you over at the sewing machine because I want to show you something that I'm adding to this to make it a little bit more complicated for myself, because that's what I do. Okay, so for my tassel, I added a little bit of this decorative stitching here, and this is the next part of my tassel piece. Now you can absolutely cut these out with the Cricut, but I had already just stitched a long piece of this 1-inch wide marine vinyl with this top stitching thread so that I could have this effect, and that's the reason that I didn't use the SVG files for those. So I just want to now go ahead and wrap my piece that the Cricut cut out for us all the way around here per the pattern instructions, but I'd like to have this top stitching on here to match, and so I'm going to go ahead and do that on my machine here. So I'm using my Singer Heavy Duty 4411, which is my little favorite machine to make heavy duty projects with, and I am going to apply a little dab of sewing machine oil to the sewing surface because it acts as a lubricant to keep it kind of going along. I'll show that to you in just a second. I'm going to wipe off the excess. So you can see that I have a moderate amount on there. You probably don't need this much, but it doesn't hurt anything as long as I don't have kind of a cotton material next to it. I'm also using my 1/4 inch foot, and this has a little guide here so that I get a consistent seam all the way along. I'm lowering my foot down, and I'm going to give it a couple cranks with my hand wheel. The thread that I'm using is actually called sewing string, and it's from Wizard Restitchery, and it's beautiful and amazing, and I'm using the Tex 35 weight. So I've given it a start. Give it a tiny little back stitch. And there it is. So pretty. Okay, and I'm going to do another one just here right above where the tassels begin. Okay, so this time I'm lining up the stitched length here, or the stitched area here, along with this left side of the foot. Give it a couple cranks to get it started. Okay, and there we have it. Pretty, pretty. Now it matches. Okay, I've added a tiny little dab of fray check onto the ends of each of those threads, and I'm going to wait for that to dry before proceeding. Okay, pretend that I'm telling the truth and that I actually waited for that fray check to dry before proceeding, because now I'm going to separate each of these individual fringes, which actually is kind of oddly satisfying. The one thing that I like about using the HTV on the back of this kind of vinyl is that it tends to keep the threads, the fraying down a bit, because this, with the cloth backing, does sometimes have a fray factor to it. And this helps eliminate that. When I cut these pieces out, I ended up taking a lighter and singeing the sides so that all of the extra fray went away. Okay, I'm going to do my best and see if I can't finish this tassel off and make Lindsay proud. I am going to apply a little bit of glue to this tab so that it sits the same way on the ring as the top tab is doing. So here I've applied some glue. There might be a reason I'm not supposed to do this. I tend to get myself in trouble. Let's live dangerously together, shall we? That's what that is, living dangerously. Okay, so I'm going to give that just a second to cure up, and then we will go on with the next phase. Okay, it's cured, and I'm now ready to move on. I know that this is not the exact perfect match in hardware, in case you're paying attention closely. This is more of a true rose gold, but I didn't have any rose gold rings or D rings, and so I spray painted this silver one to get as close as possible. And now I'm supposed to put a rivet there. So let's do that. Not always great about maintaining my sense of humor and my positive attitude when I mess up, but I did today, and I'm kind of proud of it. So I'm gonna let you watch all of my flubs so that maybe you can learn from them and not repeat the mistake as well. Okie dokie artichokes, we are at almost the end of it. I have now figured out why I shouldn't have top stitched it, so don't do that part. I will put a warning in the video, mainly because look, this top stitch is coming up. Okay, so don't do that part. So I did it backwards so that when I flip it over to the bag, you won't see that part. AKA I'm cheating. So don't do the stitching part. I'm glad I'm making these mistakes so you don't have to. Okay, so I'm going to open this little drawer here because this gives me some support, and I need to now put this tassel down here in chunk, my arbor press. If you have not seen my arbor press video, I highly encourage you to take a look because the arbor press is the bee's knees. Okay, so I should measure this. I'm going to actually be a mature adult and measure it. Hold on. Okay. Ha! Look at that. There's a hole right in the middle for us. That's kind of awesome. Who knew being an adult would pay off? Okay, I'm going to use this guy. Stick him in the middle of the hole. Go through all those layers. Put this here. Hoping that that's thick enough. Our rivet is just poking through, so that's the exact right size. Score one for me. Make up for that top stitching. Press that on there. Okay. Sticking the rivet down in the anvil. I've got the right size setter to fit over the rivet. Bring chunk down. Give a little press. And it's set. Okay, stick this back up on here. You go there. Okay, let's see what we think. So this is the way that it goes over the pocket, and when you're wearing the tassel, you turn it over to the front, and there we go. Success. And the crowd goes wild. Guys, the crowd does not go wild. The crowd boos. Crap. This slid down while I was busy trying to show you how to do a rivet. This slid off of here. So now I gotta... Okay, now we gotta take a rivet out. I will say one thing, that Sally Tomato knows how to make a tough rivet. Be gone, demon. Now pretend that we're doing it together for the very first time and that we did not have to take out a rivet because we're struggling today. Pop this through. I even used a ruler and everything last time to make sure that I was very responsible and got this centered. That's awesome. Okay, we're going to run with it. Guys, do not do the stitching, because look at what happened. Now I had to redo this hole. And the stitching is in the wrong spot. All right. Okay, at this point it's just funny. All right, we're gonna stick the rivet into the anvil. We're going to grab the appropriate setting tool. We're gonna stick it on there and we're gonna smush it because we're mad at it. All right, there we have it. A tassel. As always, if you have kind constructive criticism, ways that I can do better, please leave me a comment. If you have questions, leave me a comment, and as soon as I see them, I will be sure to reply. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.